Rep. Ted Lieu didn't just call out Secretary Hegseth, he exposed him. Lieu lays out, step by step, how Hegseth denied a possible war crime, then turned around and blamed his own admiral to save himself. And when Lieu calls him a coward on the record, that wasn't rhetoric. That was a veteran telling the Pentagon, you don't get to hide behind subordinates when lives are lost.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I also want to add my sincere condolences to the family of Sarah Beckstrom, the National Guard soldier senselessly killed last week. And I also pray that Andrew Wolf, the other National Guard soldier fighting for his life, pulls through. As Chairman Aguilar has said, we have an affordability crisis. That's one reason Donald Trump is polling at the lowest level ever for a modern-day president at this point in a term, only 36% approval, over 60% disapproval. And for folks who shopped on Black Friday, last Friday, according to Salesforce, average prices across all products increased 7%. And then specifically for household goods, prices increased 24%. Things like furniture, appliances, dining, and decor all skyrocketed. And what is Donald Trump doing? He wants to make sure his Great Gatsby ballroom is as big as it can be. Trump and his rubber stamp Republicans are not focusing on the affordability crisis, and now we have healthcare costs skyrocketing. And if we don't extend ACA tax credits, it's going to mean that millions of Americans are either going to lose health insurance or pay a lot more for the healthcare premiums. Now I'd like to talk about war crimes. Last week, Secretary Hegseth lied and denied media reports that the U.S. military ordered a second strike on defenseless shipwrecked survivors. Then yesterday, both the White House and Hegseth said actually it was Admiral Bradley who ordered the second strike. I served on active duty as a JAG for 4 years and then an additional 21 years in the reserves. And let me be very clear, killing shipwreck survivors is a war crime. The Pentagon's own Department of Defense law manual on the law of war literally says that, quote, orders to fire upon the shipwreck will be clearly illegal. The Department of Justice must conduct an investigation into the war crime and hold all those accountable, including Secretary Hegseth. He allegedly said, quote, kill them all. If the Trump administration does not hold the people accountable, I guarantee you a future administration will do so because there is no statute of limitations for war crimes. And now I have a message for the members of the United States military. Thank you for your service to our great nation. And for those of us who served, we know that we all followed a code of conduct. And part of that code of conduct is to not lie and to accept responsibility. Unfortunately, the head of the Department of Defense, Secretary Hegseth, engaged in dishonorable conduct. He stated on national TV, quote, I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. And instead of accepting responsibility for what happened, Hegseth chose to throw Admiral Bradley under the bus. Shame on Pete Hegseth. He is a coward. He must resign. You deserve better.
Ted Lieu's comments in this hearing were not just a political attack. They were a warning about something much deeper, the collapse of accountability at the highest levels of Trump's Pentagon, and the danger that creates for the rule of law, for civilians, and for the tens of thousands of service members who depend on integrity from their leadership. When Lieu opens by acknowledging the soldiers who died and those still fighting for their lives, he's doing more than expressing sympathy. He's grounding this entire conversation in the reality that military decisions are not abstract. They're not ideological debates. Every decision coming out of the Pentagon can impact real families with real names, real hopes, and real futures. And when leadership fails, it's those people, never the political appointees, who pay the price. That setup is important because when Lieu pivots to the affordability crisis affecting millions of Americans, he's drawing a contrast between what the government should be focusing on and what it is actually doing. Instead of fixing the economic pain Americans feel every day, Trump is prioritizing the expansion of a ballroom. That may sound symbolic, but it's not. It's a reflection of a governing philosophy where spectacle takes precedence over substance, and where personal ego overrides public need. Lieu uses that contrast to highlight how disconnected this administration's priorities are from the suffering on the ground. But the real earthquake in this hearing happens when Lieu begins talking about war crimes. And this is where the viewers need context, because most people hear war crime and think of some abstract legal category. Lieu himself served as a JAG officer. He knows the law of war inside and out. What he's saying is not partisan, it's legal, grounded, and stark. Under the law of armed conflict, there are certain acts that absolutely cannot be justified under any circumstance. One of the clearest is firing on shipwreck survivors. These are people who are no longer combatants. They are incapable of fighting. They are protected by every major international treaty, U.S. military law, and the Pentagon's own manuals. So when Lieu says it is a war crime, he's explaining a simple truth. Targeting defenseless survivors is illegal at every level of the law. There is no gray zone here. That's what makes Hegseth's behavior so alarming. First, he denied the reports altogether. Then, when the truth began to surface, he suddenly claimed it was Admiral Bradley who gave the order. That might sound like political maneuvering to some viewers, but in the military world, passing blame down the chain of command is one of the most dishonorable acts a leader can commit. The principle is simple. You own the consequences of the orders given under your watch. And if you lie about them, especially when lives were lost, you break the entire trust structure the military depends on. Lieu is not calling Hegseth a coward solely out of outrage. He's labeling what he sees. A man who had the authority, who made the claims, who publicly said he watched the event happen in real time, and then, when accountability approached, decided that ruining someone else's career was the easiest escape. That is the heart of the issue, not politics, not partisanship, leadership, honor, responsibility. And this moment carries even larger implications. If a defense secretary can lie about an incident involving defenseless survivors, what happens when future mistakes are made? What precedent does this set for U.S. conduct abroad? What signal does it send to allies watching closely and to adversaries who are always ready to use America's hypocrisy against it? This is why Lieu makes a point about the statute of limitations. War crimes don't expire. They don't disappear when an administration changes. They don't get washed away because a leader was politically useful. They stay on the record forever, waiting for a government with the courage to confront them. So Lieu's message wasn't just to Hegseth, it was to the entire military. It was to every service member watching. He is reminding them that their oath is to the Constitution and to the law, not to a politician, not to an administration, and certainly not to someone willing to blame his own admiral to save himself. This hearing is not just about what happened on that boat. It's about the character of the people entrusted with the power to send men and women into danger. It's about the integrity of military justice. It's about whether truth still matters when those in power find it inconvenient. And that's what viewers need to understand. This isn't about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about accountability versus lawlessness, integrity versus self-preservation, leadership versus cowardice. If we want a country where the law means something, even in wartime, even under pressure, then leaders like Lieu sounding the alarm are essential. And if we want conversations like this to continue, if we want mainstream narratives challenged and power held accountable, then independent platforms like Left Lens matter more than ever. Subscribe to Left Lens, share this video, and help keep this kind of deep, unfiltered analysis alive. The more people understand the truth behind these moments, the harder it becomes for those in power to hide from it.